Hi, I'm Julia Matthews. I'm the Associate Professor of Theater at Albright College, and I'm the director of this production.
I'm Liz Polley, and I'm an Assistant Professor of Theater.
I'm Dani Kline. I'm a senior, and I'm majoring in fashion and costume design.
So we're producing William Shakespeare's comedy, As You Like It. It's a wonderful comedy with all of Shakespeare's poetry and wit and jokes and deception and lots of fun. It's a great showcase for the students we have right now, talented cast, a bunch of people who could really sink their teeth into these roles. This will be sort of an updated version. We're setting it kind of in the 1930s, vaguely in the 1930s, I guess. And we are pretending that the Forest of Arden, which is one of the main settings in the play, we are imagining that that's Appalachia. So I don't know how visible that'll be to the audience, but some of the music will have that Appalachian influence, and some of the costumes probably have a little bit of that touch as well.
We started on this show with some historical research of the period. We're setting it in the 1930s. So we really started with that, and then kind of in this piece there are like two kind of distinct classes. We have like the people in the court, and then we have everybody out in the forest. So how do those two worlds look, and how do they look different from one another? And that's, that's just kind of everything that's gone into this one specifically. I really like it because you kind of get a set of parameters out of the gate. As far as your design, your first thing is the script. Obviously, what story are we telling? Who are the characters in that story? How do they relate to one another? How do they relate to the world? And in turn, kind of what might they be wearing to help inform the audience of all of that? And then you get some more parameters based on whatever production you're doing. So what time period are we setting the play in? And maybe what season are we in? Are people in coats, or are they in summer dresses? What are they in? And then your design team is going to come up with a production concept, and you're going to try and work your design so that it matches and kind of meshes with all of the other design areas and supports whatever the director is really trying to say with the piece.
Oh, my vision as the director, well, I think it's a play about creativity and imagination, really, because the characters that we follow, they all start out at court with very rigid roles for people to play, and they go out into the forest and start discovering more possibilities for themselves. They sort of begin to imagine themselves as new people. In some cases, our heroine disguises herself as a boy, so she's sort of exploring what is that like now to have all the privileges of male gender that she didn't have before.
It's interesting because we have things like in the play there are dukes, and in 1930s Appalachia there wasn't necessarily a duke of anything. So talking with Julia Matthews, our director, and finding out, okay, how are we representing this in our production to show this difference in hierarchy and this difference in seniority and this difference in class, maybe, so that the audience can relate to it and understand who this character is and why they're doing what they're doing and what's motivating them, and then how we can support that with what their costume design looks like. And I think, that's pretty much the secret, is not, we're not necessarily going and looking at what they would have worn if we were doing it true to period and then translating that into a modern way, but we're taking who their characters are and how they relate to each other and finding a way within a 1930s silhouette to tell that story. And I think, with any time period, there's also, we're not just taking this older text and translating it into the 30s, but we're also telling it to a 2023 audience. So how people view things and see things and interpret things and understand them, we have to take that into account. You can't just kind of ignore that and do, true to the 30s even. So we take elements of those period silhouettes and we incorporate them in a way that when you look at them with a modern eye and modern tastes and modern understanding of things, it still makes sense to you, and it's not something so foreign to what we're used to looking at that we spend the whole play focusing on that instead of the words and the action and what we're actually supposed to be paying attention to.
Yeah, I think we're in a really good spot. We've gotten most of the fittings, the first fittings done, a lot of the mock-ups for what we are making done, so we can start making the actual product for it. And a lot of the fittings have gone really well. They have a lot of outfits already like set in stone and labeled and ready for them, or shoes that they can start using in rehearsal. So we're in a really good spot. We've bought a few items that we do still need, a lot of shoes we needed, or like accessories, hats, things like that. But yeah.
Our heroine in the play is a young woman named Rosalind, and really following her, what she learns about herself over the course of the play. She's the one who disguises herself as a boy, and then in that boy disguise has meetings with the man she's in love with, but he doesn't realize it's her. So there are these levels of tricks and deceits, but there are also these levels of testing, and testing what does this man really believe about love, what does he really feel, what does she really feel about him, and there's some lines that really poke at the idea of love. At one point she says, "Men have died and worms have eaten them, but not for love." That we can't pretend that love will kill us, but actually most people survive it. Which I think is smart and kind of a nice reflection to that sort of stereotype of the swoony girl who's in love and dreamy-eyed and can't see anything but her beloved. Rosalind sees a lot of options. One of our sort of bad guys from Act 1 comes to the forest and has a reformation and decides that he's going to become a new man, and the very end of the play kind of shows us a sort of magical happy ending, and I think that's profound to think about, going into the forest and finding creativity that's so rich it can transform you. Because this is Shakespeare, it's very important to me that the people who are in the leading roles speak the language well, and the language can be tricky. Being Shakespeare can really be a tongue twister, so I wanted to find some actors who had a gift for using language and playing with puns and jokes and tongue twisters and that kind of thing. So I think that that was one of the categories. The other is just a sort of a warm heart, that I really wanted people who could be lovable from the stage, even though they're speaking this difficult language and this ancient story in a way.
It's definitely daunting, I think, sometimes, and this is actually, spoiler alert, my first Shakespeare costume design. It's not the first Shakespeare production I've been a part of by any stretch, and I've been seeing Shakespeare plays since I was really young, but this is actually my first time as the costume designer for Shakespeare. And I think, everyone, especially a show like As You Like It, a lot of people are familiar with the piece, so you kind of have that almost pressure of, what are people expecting from this piece? And then you also have, that language barrier. Even as someone who's read a lot of Shakespeare in my time, seen it a lot and heard it a lot, you really have to dive deep into the text to get those clues as to things that the actors might need, because there's a line that's referencing it, but you have to read really closely to catch that and to support the action, where in something that might be a more modern language, it's just going to say, he pulls a handkerchief out of his pocket. Here, there might be just a really subtle reference to something, and you want to catch that because you want to give the actors and the director what they need to tell the story and to help the modern audience understand the text. And if our costume choices and designs support that, it's just going to help everyone with it. But it takes really careful reading, and as you can imagine, it's a longer script, so you have to kind of go through it a number of times to really kind of get what's going on and be able to support that with your work.
Well, I think this is a play that's very much about love. So that tells you something about the structure, that we follow these different couples with their different struggles, and some unrequited love and some sort of mismatched love. and some deception that gets tried and tested in different ways. I think really it's a very optimistic look at love, that there are lots of lines about how love is more than, how love involves service and humility and duty. It's not just romance and swooning and sonnets being pinned on the trees, although that does happen in one scene. But by the end of the play, people are talking about love really being kind of a meeting of the minds and a meeting of the hearts. This is one of Shakespeare's plays that has one of the plays with a lot of songs in it. And we are keeping some of Shakespeare's lyrics. We are changing out some of his songs for more contemporary songs. Well, actually they're not contemporary, they're more like folk songs. And I'm really thrilled that we've got not only several very good singers, but also 3 guitar players who are also stretching into ukulele and banjo, and so I think we'll have some nice textures going when we get to the songs. The set is by Mike Rhodes, and who's a beautiful designer, and it is kind of like an abstract formed out of barn slats. It's kind of different shapes that can slide back and forth and that are vaguely like doors or vaguely like shutters, and that can open and close in different configurations. It's not a real place, it's a flexible place.
Everything is tight, and this is a cast of 21, which stretches us a bit both budget-wise, time-wise, practicality-wise. So, but with a Shakespeare, you need those numbers for these kind of big crowd moments, and I think that's important to the story and the way that the script works. So I, didn't want to say, no, we can't have that many people in that scene. It's, yes, we can, but how? So we do not make everything. As you can imagine, for 21 people, many of which have multiple looks, some of which are even playing multiple characters. So we have to really change them from one to the other. And we're building, I have a student staff of 6 costume technicians. So they are all building something, some of them more than one somethings. For mostly like dresses and things that really have to give you that period look. And then, for the menswear, it's more about ordering maybe the right suit or the right pants and then styling it with the right shoes and shirt and tie and hat and vest and all the pieces that, button-on suspenders and everything to make it really look that time period. And then when you have them on stage with the pieces that we've built and then hairstyles that we're going to do that are of the time period, and our makeup designer has done a lot of research on that and the time period and what that looks like. So I think once it's all together on stage, we'll really see that story. We also have a pretty significant costume storage on site. It's actually over by the stadium. So if you ever see people traveling across campus with loads of bags or a cart, it's probably us. And we go over there and we pull as much from like past shows and stuff that we already own as we can and kind of reuse it, maybe change the trim, alter it to fit the actor better, and make it so it will fit in our world. But that helps us stretch the budget as far as we can to really get those special pieces made or purchased to make this show, everything it needs to be. It kind of frees us up a little bit as we've kind of designed the forest looks, that it's a little bit more of an anachronistic take. It's almost like if I'm a woman or a man in the 1930s cosplaying a forest nymph or something, what does that look like? Or a shepherdess, but kind of a romanticized version of it. So I might take these pieces that I might have had, but I'm going to style them in a way or add things to them that gives it kind of a romantic feel, because I think the forest kind of feels romantic, and that's where all these people go and fall in love and get married. And then we have our goddess wedding. I think on this one, shoes have really been, there's just so many people and they need kind of multiple footwear options for different things.
Keeping track of all the different characters and like what looks they need and if they're playing more than one character, and keeping straight like which pieces are for which look, because there's a lot of people playing more than one or like in need of more than one look. So that's been difficult, but I think I have it mostly down now.
We have kind of these very large platforms and steps, and people are climbing, and the way that you get off of these backstage is the ladder, and so worrying about, you know, women potentially in heels with different things and climbing and how that, you know, keeping everybody safe. And there's a wrestling match in the middle of this piece, so what am I wearing so I can wrestle, but I don't really have time to change, so how can that all work and look good but still be practical? So that, I think for this one, that has definitely been kind of one of the things, you know, and like Dani said, we've just been trying to source and purchase probably a lot of shoes for this one, which, you know, we can always use again, which is great, but just trying to make sure everyone has something that looks good, supports everything, helps them as far as walking appropriately, but also, you know, is safe and they can do what they need to do on the set and have the agility and mobility that they need, has kind of been a focus, I think, for sure. And then also what the actors need to be able to do or dancers need to do or whatever needs to happen in the costumes has to be able to happen. So if you put someone in a giant train and they're supposed to be tumbling across the stage in a dance number, that's probably not gonna work. So what I like about designing for theater and kind of how it works is that you start with these parameters and then all of your designing happens kind of within that.
Yeah, so this has been a really fun experience because before this I've only done like wardrobe or helping build the costumes. I did get some experience designing this summer, so it was really nice to be able to help out with the designing for the shows here also. My role has basically been to help Liz's design ideas, put together like the paperwork, keep things organized, keep track of notes we get, fitting notes, pulling things, and just kind of like keeping the vision on track for the costumes and like having a say in different pieces and certain characters. So it's been really fun to be a part of the actual design for this one.
And there's music and there's singing, and so it's just a much more magical feeling place, and things will transform in a kind of magical way as far as the rest of the production elements. So I think that has helped us kind of be a little freer with the silhouettes there, and we're going to add some really fun fantasy touches with makeup and accessories and things that let us kind of play in that magical world for a bit.
It is also daunting because the language is very different, but I've always been interested in Shakespeare's writing, and I'm actually taking a Shakespeare class right now, so it's kind of helpful. It all kind of like comes together, but it is really interesting to have to read deeper into the text to figure things out, or like take what you read from it as opposed to like what someone else reads from it, and then kind of like join those ideas together, compromise. But it's really fun. The 1930s gives you a scope of like fashion styles to play off of, but like it also gives you the opportunity to kind of go away from that a little bit when it comes to like more of the foresty aspects, because it's more like not magical, but like it is kind of more not as usual, so it's not like common. You can do like more fun things like cloaks and things like that, you know, like little like corset pieces or like long flowy skirts that are not necessarily period to the 1930s, but they still work in the world that we've created.
It's been fun to play in this, and we actually had a really fun meeting today bringing in the hair and makeup elements, so that can also support, you know, when our leading lady goes into the forest and presents as a man, you know, does she have a mustache that's getting spirit gummed onto her face, and then at the end when she has her big reveal for her wedding in her back to her more feminine look, that comes off and it makes this kind of magical moment. So being able to add those details down to, we were talking about like the shoes and how you walk much differently if you're in like a clunky kind of work boot versus if you're in heels versus something more, even a flat that's just lighter and more dainty. So supporting kind of their character choices from the ground up. And that's really what it comes down to at the beginning with a couple of the characters who kind of, in the script maybe are male, but we've cast a female. We actually met with those actors, with the director, to kind of talk about where they see it and how they're going to play it. And how our costume choices can support that, so that what they're doing on stage and the way that they're portraying the character is matched and supported and not in some kind of weird contrast with each other. And I think we've come up with some really fun things that are going to be a joy for the audience to watch, and our actors are having a good time.
Yeah, so we do have quite a few characters in here that dress as like different people, but they're the same person, or they are completely different characters. So we do try to have elements that compare them to each other if they're the same character just dressing as a different person, whether it's in like colors or maybe like material. And we do have some that are played by female characters, but they're playing a male character, and that's really fun, especially with like 1930s style. So you can kind of play around with that and like how it fits them best. But yeah, it is really interesting to kind of play on different elements, like kind of combining like more masculine styles, but like for a female. But yeah, there is a lot of that.
I hope that people come see the show and they have a great time, because it's a comedy. It's one of the more accessible and easy to follow and just fun Shakespeare plays. There's not big, heavy stuff that's going to sit on you. It is just a fun time, and the cast that we have is having a ball doing it, and they're a joy to watch. And if this is a thing for you, because sometimes with Shakespeare it is, that oh my gosh, it's so long. Julia Matthews, our director, is a wonderful Shakespeare scholar and director, and she has actually gone through and pared down some of those longer speeches, taken some moments that she feels, could move a little quicker, and, really breathed new life into the script that makes it really fun. It doesn't drag. It's not as long as you think. You're going to be in and out before you know it, and hopefully laughing and singing on the way. So definitely come out and see it and have a good time.
Well, it's a lovely company, and they have fun together. So I'm really looking forward to having some fun in the theater, having some jokes, some silliness, and also this beautiful language. I think we'll have some of both, some comedy and some beauty, and that's a nice combination.
It is one of the more fun Shakespeare plays that I've read personally. There is a lot of comedy, a lot of fun characters, a lot of fun scenes that are just comedic. And I especially like, there's romance in it, which a lot of people are fans of, including me. So that's always fun, and just seeing like how that plays out, all the different character interactions. But yeah, I think, and the music element too is really cool. There's musicians playing their own musical instruments, which is really fun to see like on stage. So yeah, I hope people do come and see it. I think they will enjoy it. And for myself, since I'm graduating in December, I'm glad that I was able to do assistant designing for the show before leaving. I do hope to keep working in costumes after I graduate, whether it's in wardrobe or, design work or construction work, but eventually I do hope to be a costume designer.
You should come. It's a great play, and it's going to be a charming production. We've got a lovely company of about 15 actors, and we're working hard on the play and enjoying it, and we're going to have wonderful designs by Liz Polley and Rock, as well as Mike Rhodes, and I just encourage everybody to come and see it.